While I may not agree with every opinion or choice expressed by Donald's grown children, nor do I align with all of Donald's decisions, I acknowledge that differing viewpoints are a natural aspect of human relationships. It's essential to remember that each person is deserving of respect and understanding, regardless of disagreements. I have focused on creating an environment where everyone feels free to express themselves authentically. In any relationship, whether as a mother, wife, or stepmother, I firmly believe in the principle, don't control, communicate. Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess Cannell, and if you are new, then I'd like to welcome you. And I'd also like to earn your subscription. Right now we are going through Melania's autobiography by Melania Trump. And we have heard about her childhood, her entrance into the modeling world, which she didn't expect. She actually started out as an architecture and art and design student and was discovered by a photographer and ended up having success in that path, taking that path, and at the age of 26, immigrated to New York. In the last episode, we saw how she began dating Donald Trump, and we got to see it all the way through to their wedding. Something that I've decided is that for this channel, I'm going to try, instead of having a different thing multiple days of the week, I'm going to try to go great guns with this book. We will still keep Chappaquiddick on Wednesdays, and I will occasionally do a vintage variety hour or an old magazine read. But we are going to move through this book primarily with Chappaquiddick as our once a week kind of treat to get out of this world. But that way we move through this book. I know the election right now, when I'm recording this, it's the day before election day. So I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But either way, I don't think we want this book to last forever and ever and ever. So I'm hoping to be done with it before Thanksgiving. I hope we can just plod through it day by day and get through it in the next couple of weeks. And then in December, we will get to start some of those books that we've talked about, like Palace Papers. I hope that schedule looks good to you. Let me know. I'm sorry if it's disappointing. I just find that for me and also for the readers, it's difficult, I think, to have once a week chapters. I think it's a little disjointed. And so I'm hoping that by moving through this book more quickly, we can fully enjoy this book. Those who don't like it can skip for a little while, and then we'll get into a different book and be able to enjoy that one together. I hope that will suit you, and I hope it will suit me as well, because at this point, I was having trouble juggling, so I hope that's well. In today's episode, we are picking up in the middle of that chapter called Hi, I'm Donald Trump, which is chapter 5, and we're going all the way through, probably at least through chapter 6. We'll just see how far we get, and let's dive right in. You are going to be a daddy, I burst out when Donald returned home from work one night in July 2005. At this point, he'd be 59. Not the oldest father ever. His face lit up. At this point, he would have been about 59, which doesn't make him the oldest father ever, but she is much younger than him. She's 35. That's amazing. His face lit up with joy. Wonderful. We were both over the moon. I reached out to my sister to share the joy, followed by my parents in Slovenia. Apart from a select few family members and close friends, we opted to keep our news private for the time being. They had had their wedding in January of this year, and now it's July. Donald and I kept our secret as long as we could until it was impossible to hide any longer. On September 27th, 2005, the New York Post broke the news. Donald Trump is about to get a new apprentice. Of course, his show, The Apprentice, was in the news at that time, on the waves. It was one of the hottest shows, if not the number one show. I know several years it did take that number one position, but that was what he became famous for in a totally different realm than his real estate ventures that he had previously made a name for himself with. And I wonder, did y'all like that show? I remember one person from the show, and I'll tell you, it was Omarosa. I remember her being a real diva. Something hit her on the head, if I'm remembering right. Am I even remembering that right? Y'all let me know. But like, she got like some little piece of drywall on her head, but made it into a big spectacle. That's what I remember about The Apprentice. I don't know how many seasons I watched. I don't know if that was season 1 or season 2, but we liked that show in the beginning, but I definitely didn't follow all of them. She says, each woman's pregnancy is unique, and I consider myself fortunate to have enjoyed my time carrying my child. I've always been incredibly health conscious and selective about what I eat. However, now that I was nurturing a new life within me, my standards reached new heights. I ate only the purest, preservative-free foods and completely cut out soda from my diet. I also incorporated regular Pilates and aerobic exercises. As a first-time mother, there's a natural sense of nervousness about the unknown. You hope everything will go well with no complications. You take care of yourself as best you can and live your life, all while marveling at the miracle of carrying another life inside of you. It was truly extraordinary to feel how beautifully the body knows what to do. My body was changing, and I welcomed this celebration of life itself. I was the creator of life, and I was so proud of it. I let go of any pressure to hide my body. I honored my new curves and cherished every part of the journey and all the miracles it brought. During my 3rd trimester, Anna Wintour at Vogue approached me with an exciting concept. She proposed featuring me, very pregnant, in the magazine to celebrate the beauty of pregnancy and motherhood. I fully resonated with the idea. At 7 months pregnant, I flew to Palm Beach to shoot with Annie Leibovitz. It was a wonderful celebration of life and the miracle of creating a new one. I think it's very sexy for a woman to be pregnant, I told the readers of Vogue, making it very clear that I believe a pregnant woman is very attractive. Seeing the stunning photographs in the magazine the following April only confirmed my decision to celebrate pregnancy. If you haven't seen them, she is a very pregnant Melania. And just to level with y'all, I am not a fan of the belly bump photo phenomenon. I like to just have clothes on the belly. That's just my preference. I'm probably old school and traditional. I think pregnancy is really beautiful. I'm just not a fan of the belly bump picture. What about you? But she took a photo of her belly bump. This is the photo that she took. So you can see Donald Trump, you just barely catch a glimpse of him in his little car. But there she is on the steps of his plane, and her bump is entirely exposed. She's in a gold bikini, gold heels, and some sort of like gold kimono or robe slung over her arm. Of course, as a supermodel, she's the perfect person to show off a perfect body with a perfect belly. And even though I'm not a fan of the belly bump photo, I do heartily celebrate making pregnancy and motherhood absolutely beautiful. I think it is a beautiful part of our lives. I know every single time, and y'all know I have a lot of children, including all the way to our 9th child. Every time it was a miracle. Every time it felt incredible to have a little person inside. And I know any of you who have been mothers have felt that same thing too, just the miracle of how life is created. It is beautiful, and it's beautiful to get to be a part of it, and we ought to celebrate it more. We ought to make it more accessible to young women whenever we can. And so I celebrate that part, even if I'm not a fan of the exposed belly bump. Stepping into marriage with Donald, I found myself navigating the intricate dynamics of his big family. It demanded flexibility and openness, but each moment was a chance to connect, learn, and grow in this new environment. By the time Donald and I married and welcomed Barron, his older children, Dawn, Ivanka, and Eric, had become more independent, while Tiffany remained in her formative years residing with her mother in California. That would be hard. That would be really complex, and it's a lot for a person to walk into. I know I have a family member who has done that in my extended family, and she's done a beautiful job. it is still incredibly difficult. Even when you do a fantastic job, it is difficult to navigate the blended family relationships, especially if you have children. I imagine it's even difficult if they're little, but especially if they're already teens or adults by the time you step into the picture. That is a potential field of landmines. My approach to building relationships with Donald's children has always been grounded in love and respect. My role is not to replace their mothers, but to nurture a supportive and amicable connection. While I may not agree with every opinion or choice expressed by Donald's grown children, nor do I align with all of Donald's decisions, I acknowledge that differing viewpoints are a natural aspect of human relationships. It's essential to remember that each person is deserving of respect and understanding, regardless of disagreements. I have focused on creating an environment where everyone feels free to express themselves authentically. Rather than imposing my views or critiquing others, I have aimed to be a steady presence, someone they can rely on. In any relationship, whether as a mother, wife, or stepmother, I firmly believe in the principle, don't control, communicate. That's an interesting idea, and it relates back to something we talked about last episode with her relationship with Donald, that I see in her a very libertarian spirit. She seems uniquely capable of allowing other people to fully exist in their own realm without seeking to control. And I wonder if part of that was her own upbringing. I wonder if part is that by the time she entered motherhood, she was in her mid-30s and had lived a very independent life, making her own decisions. And so she inherently valued that personhood of each individual in a way that I think is unique. What do you think? That stands out to me about her, and it keeps coming up as a theme. And the way she says it is, don't control, communicate. Interesting idea, I think. For my part, I just want to admit to you guys and to the world that that's something that I'm still working on. I don't have a blended family, but I do have a very wide spread of ages. And so while I am still parenting early elementary school children, I'm also parenting or loving and developing a relationship with adults who are my children. And so from the ages of 22 all the way down to 6, I've got this varying approaches to parenting going on all the time in my home. That said, this idea has been interesting to me to ponder. I've had different mentors over the years that have said things like, you know, the way that you go from being a parent to being more like a coach to being more like a peer or just a mutual adult with your child. Some people use the term friend, whatever, that's fine. I'm not particularly fond of the term friend because I think it muddies things and makes them less clear than they are. You are always still their parent. And there's going to be some dynamics there of mutual obligations to one another and a desire for approval that is distinct and different from a friendship. All that said, her idea about a libertarian spirit, which is my word for it, but her word is don't control, communicate. I think it's a really great idea for interacting with late teens, let's say like 17 and upward maybe for me, in our home at least, into adulthood, of learning how to make that transition of being the one that's entirely in control when they are little. You're controlling everything of what they're influenced by, what they can interact with, all of it, all the way to a launch in the world where you're in control of none of it. Her approach is generally, with all of those relationships that she named, to have a hands-off, no control policy. It's very challenging for me, actually. She says, I understand that being possessive is not conducive to a healthy family dynamic. Each member requires their own space, and I have made it a priority to respect that need. This has allowed me to remain true to myself, nurturing my own independence while embracing my roles within the family. It's been vital for me to set boundaries and maintain my individuality. While we may share the same last name, each of us is distinct. Barron William Trump came into this world in March 2006. The experience of being a mother brought me a sense of warmth, love, purpose, and fulfillment that I had never felt before. I discovered my own strength, the incredible capabilities of a woman's body, and the instinctual drive to protect and care for another life. I learned how to adapt and prioritize my life, how to function on minimal sleep, and the inevitable exhaustion and anxieties that come with motherhood. The constant thoughts of my child's well-being, sleeping patterns, feeding habits were all new challenges that I faced with determination and love. She really did, I think, give herself over to the work of motherhood. It's incredible the things that a woman goes through when she becomes a mother. She says, I found myself cherishing the moments when I held Barron in my arms and gazed into his eyes. I appreciated his innocence, and watching Donald interact with Barron was heartwarming. His connection with his son showcased a different side of him that I had not seen before. Their relationship was filled with love and admiration, and it was truly touching to witness. On weekdays, Donald was often occupied with work, leaving me as Barron's primary caregiver. And on weekends, we would escape the city to Westchester, Bedminster, or Mar-a-Lago. It was there that Barron took his first swings at golf with Donald, first swimming lessons with my father, and tennis lessons with me. Our home provided a space where we could enjoy a normal family life. I made it a priority to create a nurturing and loving environment for Barron to thrive in. Again, I'll note, y'all, she is ending sentences with prepositions. She's using sometimes words that I think a ghostwriter would find trite, like it was truly touching to witness. I don't think a ghostwriter would come up with that as their description of the way a mother views the father and son interacting. I think these are Melania's words. Now, if you wanted to say that she knows English not very well, she speaks with an accent, etc., I will say, I think there's a movie that says this. I may speak with an accent, but I don't think with an accent. Someone can have a good understanding of the English language and yet not be able to produce it in speech. That's number one. Number two is that I don't view line editing or English syntax editing the same as I would ghostwriting. So I have no doubt that someone combed through and helped her clean it up. But because of something that we're going to see probably in the next episode that happens, I don't think she would let someone take editorial control over this, her very first book to the world. I don't think she would, and we'll see why in the next episode. But I feel really strongly about this, if you can't tell. I don't think this is ghostwritten. I think she did it. Let's keep reading. When Barron entered the world, I deliberately chose to step back from public life. My focus shifted to creating a sanctuary at home for my son. The allure of glamorous photo shoots and a jet-setting lifestyle no longer held sway over me, as my heart was captivated by the joy of nurturing and raising Barron. My career took a back seat to the most important role of all, being a devoted mother. As a new mom, I was fortunate to be able to look to my own mother for guidance. My mother was a private yet deeply connected individual. She valued authentic connections and friendships, always steering clear of gossip and negativity, a principle I cherish in my own life. As a mother, I strove to guide and support my child without imposing my will, just as she did with me. She believed in allowing others to carve their own paths, a philosophy I wholeheartedly embrace. Again, y'all, we get this libertarian spirit from her. This principle that she is telling us she got from her mother is a driving force in her life. It says she understood the importance of self-discovery and independence. Her virtues of patience demonstrated that with time and nurturing, we can all flourish into our most radiant selves. I do think this is a critique I've had of many different parenting philosophies and approaches, that there's a limit to what one human can endure. And for the average family over history, family involves 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children. Now I realize the modern era has 1 or 2 as the norm, but for me, when I'm thinking about what is an appropriate parenting model, I've needed to think about what's biblical, what's wise and good for the child, and also for me, a guiding principle has been, could I take this parenting principle and apply it across time and across cultures? And if I can't, then I don't particularly embrace that parenting philosophy. And for me, if I had done this, letting each child be supported and guided without imposing my will, I can see that when your child is 17. However, when your child is 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have another child or children coming up behind them every 2 years, that house would be chaos. So I will say, I think her philosophy is fascinating as far as it goes. I think it's obviously seems to have worked well for them. Barron seems to be a respectful young man. We'll see as he ages, but he does seem to have so far avoided a spectacular crash. Let's say it that way. He is certainly not the RFKJ and Joseph Kennedy and all of them being hellions on Hyannisport. We have not seen anything like that from Barron Trump. So I'll say it works well for her, but that's my one critique of this kind of parenting philosophy would be, I'm not sure that you can do that with some 2-year-olds. And I definitely would question whether or not you could do it if you had, say, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a newborn all in the house and just let them all be supported and nurtured, but ultimately carve out their own path. I think that could be a recipe for disaster. And so perhaps she's putting, a glossy spin on what she did a little bit and not remembering some of those moments in the trenches with a little one. Maybe Barron didn't have a very defiant will. There may be lots of factors, but for me, that's kind of the one asterisk that I have to this, is that I find this very fascinating for teens and young adults. I personally would struggle to implement it with little children, because for me, with a large family with multiple little kids for like 10 or 15 years straight, I had multiple little kids. So I would find that impossible to live out. I'll say it that way. Now she takes us into something that I heard about at the time. I remember it being featured on the news, and I didn't understand the significance. On the news, they announced that her mother had passed earlier this year. And I was not aware of the role that Amalia had played. Even in the White House years, she apparently was very involved in supporting their family, being a backup for when Melania needed to travel so that Barron would have someone familiar and family caring for him. But I also didn't realize that she was really close, not only with Melania, but also with Donald. She leads us into, while she's talking about her love for her mother, she takes us into the modern year. I mean, we still have this much of the book left, but she takes us to January 9th, 2024. There's an unparalleled sorrow in losing a mother, a profound heartache that shatters the spirit into fragments. For me, this heartache feels insurmountable, and the weight of grief is overwhelming. As I bid her farewell, I was left with a profound sense of loss, yet an enduring gratitude for the unconditional love she bestowed upon me. My eulogy read, I'm just going to read some selections from the eulogy. My mother, the epitome of elegance and grace, exemplified the essence of a true woman. Her love for her husband Victor, Inez, my sister, and me was boundless. Her nurturing spirit had no limits. She showered her grandson Barron with affection, illuminating his world with love, tender care, and unwavering devotion. In her presence, we were enveloped in the warmth of her embrace. She was a true beacon of love and luxury in our lives. With her beauty and impeccable sense of style, she turned the heads of many. She effortlessly introduced me to the charming world of fashion. With each whispered detail of the splendid fashion shows, spectacular cities, and chic boutiques, she ignited a passion within me. Her travels became my gateway to the land of fashion allure. She left the familiarity of her homeland to be with her newborn grandson in the United States. He was my mother's compass and focus. With each step she took, she embraced the privilege of becoming a United States citizen. My father, sister, Barron, Donald, and I will forever remember the echoes of our laughter that we shared with our beloved Bobby over fun dinners and travels. In her presence, the world seemed to shimmer with radiant joy. She was not just a friend, but a confidant, a beacon of light in the darkest days. In her company, I found peace. She was my dear friend, an irreplaceable treasure, a gift bestowed upon me by the universe. And for that, I am eternally grateful. Rest in peace, my beloved mommy. This eulogy is a testament, an extraordinary description of a woman who was irreplaceable for Melania. I remember the reference to their deep grief at the time. I remember Trump came out and made a specific statement about it. News agencies that normally show no softness to the Trumps seemed to lend their empathy to Melania. I think anyone who knew Melania even a little must have known the importance that Amalia had in her life and in their home. I'm actually really grateful that she shared this with us. For as private of a woman as she is, for her to open up this deep grief to us is actually a moment of vulnerability, I think. And it's her way of honoring her mother. So now we're going back to 2006. It was only a few months after Barron was born that our family would mark another significant change. In July 2006, I became an American citizen. She then fast forwards 17 years when she is the one giving a speech at a naturalization ceremony when others are taking the oath of citizenship. Here's parts of that speech. She says, "Throughout our lives, we cross thresholds. For me, reaching the milestone of American citizenship marked the sunrise of certainty. At that exact moment, I forever discarded the layer of burden connected with whether I would be able to live in the United States. I hope you are blanketed with similar feelings of comfort right now." Finally, I could plan all the aspects of my life. I recall feeling a tremendous sense of pride and belonging after I recited the United States Oath of Allegiance, as the pathway to citizenship is arduous. She honors the country of Slovenia and then her career in other cities. And she says, while working internationally had its share of rules and regulations, it wasn't until I moved to New York City in 1996 that the system truly tested my determination. Upon my arrival, I immediately knew that I wanted to make the United States my permanent home. I began researching, and quickly my life turned into a labyrinth of organizing paperwork. Back then, the convenience of technology's document filing didn't really exist to the extent that it does today. Even if very time-consuming, my dream of becoming a citizen pushed me to meticulously gather every last piece of information required, ensuring that no detail was overlooked. My personal experience opened my eyes to the harsh realities people face, including you, who try to become U.S. citizens. There are nuances of understanding immigration laws, the complex legal language. I was very devoted, but I was certainly not an attorney. And eventually it proved critical for me to retain counsel. Then my journey was streamlined. While the challenges were numerous, the rewards were well worth the effort. I applaud you for every step you took, every obstacle you overcame, and every sacrifice you made. It's an honor to stand with you in these hallowed halls today in the presence of the Declaration of Independence. Becoming an American citizen comes with responsibility. It means actively participating in the democratic process and guarding our freedom. It's a life-altering experience. You're now part of a nation with a rich history of progress, innovation, and resilience. Though you come from 25 different countries, your dreams and aspirations intertwine with those who have come before you since 1776, and together shape the future of this extraordinary country. Be proud of yourself. Embrace the opportunities that lie ahead. You are American. Be a beacon of inspiration for your children and those who follow in your footsteps. I just wanted to say she understands the rigors of the immigration process, and she honors immigrants and prods all immigrants toward an American future. I love her approach to this. And I want to say, for those who would demean her for not ramrodding her opinion through her husband's administration, I think her libertarian spirit guides her in that too. Reading this discussion of how hands-off she is and how much she doesn't desire to control other people, but simply to communicate, I think this kind of speech is her ambition of communicating what she thinks. She said in it earlier in the chapter that she doesn't always agree with Donald, that she doesn't always agree with her stepchildren. And yet here she is saying it's crazy difficult. I ended up having to get a lawyer to get through it. It was time consuming, it was meticulous, and I was dedicated to it, and it still took a long time. I applaud all of you for doing it. She's very honoring toward them, and I'm here for it, y'all. I like that a lot. And just reading this speech makes me feel more proud to be an American. I love the fact that anyone from anywhere can come, and by embracing our values and joining in can become a part. I think it's beautiful and it's rare in the world, and reading this made me feel very proud of that. On the day of my swearing-in ceremony, Donald and I arrived at the courthouse together. The room was filled with diverse people from various backgrounds and cultures, speaking many different languages. I reflected on my way back to Trump Tower that day. Home had meant so many different things to me over the years. Sevnija, my little town by the Sava River, Ljubljana, and the apartment I shared with my sister, Milan, Paris, the little one-bedroom in Midtown Manhattan that I'd found and furnished myself, and now our family's residence at the top of Trump Tower. As I stated before, I had been a citizen of the world, and now finally, I was also an American. We're on to chapter 6. By 2009, with Barron now in preschool, I was able to carve out some time for projects beyond motherhood. I was excited for these new ventures. In 2009, Mark Beckman, CEO of the award-winning agency DMA United, presented me with the idea of creating a jewelry line. Given my love for art, design, and creativity, and having worked in the fashion industry for almost 20 years, the opportunity to design jewelry was thrilling and felt like a perfect new venture. I started to develop a concept inspired by a beautiful gold bracelet my father had given to my mother. Taking into account the questions women had asked me about my own personal jewelry choices, I started crafting pieces that reflected my own style. I conceived the idea of 3 different collections, each inspired by a place that had held significance to me. The Paris collection would be glamorous, the New York collection would be more business-oriented, and the Palm Beach collection would embody sporty elegance. Each collection was curated to not only reflect the city that it was supposed to resemble, but also to ensure that everything was priced at a reasonable level. By offering these collections for under $200, my goal was to make fashion more accessible. I wanted to empower women to treat themselves to something special. Each creation was a labor of love, and I was excited to share these designs with the world. QVC broadcasted the hour-long 8 o'clock segment on the first night, followed by another hour the next morning. The collection sold out within 45 minutes, sparking a 3-year success story. The demand continued to grow over the next 3 years, with each appearance on the network resulting in record-breaking sales. I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride, knowing that I was contributing to making the world a more beautiful place, one stunning piece of jewelry at a time. I've always been driven to work hard and earn my own money. Watching my parents work hard throughout their lives instilled in me a strong work ethic and a desire for independence. I've never been one to sit idly by, even with the comfort of a husband by my side, even with the comfort of a successful husband by my side. I firmly believe in the virtue of maintaining control over one's own life, regardless of whom you marry. Running my own business has given me such confidence. I've always wanted to encourage women to pursue their passions and achieve success. Throughout my teenage years, I made it a priority to care for my skin diligently. As I embarked on my modeling career, I began experimenting with different skincare routines, often mixing products or creating my own. People frequently asked me about my regimen, marveling at the health of my skin. So in 2011, the CEO of New Sunshine, an Indiana-based company, approached her with the idea of creating a high-end skincare line. It felt like an ideal next step. After several months of contract negotiations, they signed a 5-year deal. She would create and promote the products. New Sunshine would handle manufacturing and distribution. She approached this venture with the same enthusiasm that she had done with her jewelry business. She says, meeting with chemists to learn about lotions, creams, and serums, understanding which ingredients would work harmoniously, which would spoil, and which might clash, became part of my weekly routine. We developed several items over the next few months: the Fluid Day Serum, the Luxe Night with vitamins A and E, cleansing balm, and an exfoliating peel, all priced between $50 and $150. As she met with chemists, she discovers that there's rejuvenating properties in caviar, and she wants to create formulas that incorporate this luxurious and unique ingredient. So it went into production in 2013, and she promoted the line through TV and print interviews. The response was positive. The products were superb, the packaging was beautiful, and they had every indication that the line would sell very well. But the full rollout never materialized. The products were briefly available at Lord & Taylor before internal issues at New Sunshine halted everything. The products weren't delivered. Stores had no inventory. My disappointment quickly turned to anger. The issues had nothing to do with me. They stemmed from a dispute between the owners, which led to lawsuits. Amid their disagreement, my contract was questioned and the distribution of the products stopped. I was the face of the brand, and the failure to deliver was a threat to my reputation and integrity. I was deeply disappointed and frustrated and decided to take legal action. The fallout had a detrimental impact. It was made clear in court that this was not how business should be conducted, and the judge ruled in her favor, confirming the validity of my contract and awarding me a contract-agreed settlement. Overall, this experience taught me valuable lessons about the complexities of the business world and the importance of ensuring that all parties are committed to fulfilling their obligations. I remained proud of the products we created and the effort I put in to promoting them. We're going to get a little bit into chapter 7 and then we'll wrap it up. June 16th, 2015 marked yet another carefully planned and executed change in our lives, one that had been years in the making. From our apartment high up Trump Tower, I could see the first light of dawn. As the mother of a 9-year-old boy, early wake-ups and full days were my norm. A typical Tuesday would have me out of bed at 6, waking Barron, making his breakfast, and spending a little time with him before driving him to school. But today was no ordinary Tuesday. This day was a clear demarcation in our lives, dividing everything into before and after, a day that would be etched in memory, not just for our family, but for the American people as well. Our instructions were to be ready and down in Donald's office on the 26th floor before 11 o'clock. Donald's adult children and their families would join us there. I went to check on Barron. He was still asleep when I entered his room, and I didn't want to wake him just yet. I touched his face and kissed him. And I just said, this is not how I go about not trying to wake up my children, to go and touch their faces and kiss them. I think it's a very sweet moment. It's just, if I want my children to keep sleeping, I would not do that. It's very sweet of her that she's just tenderly and affectionately entering into this moment and soberly recognizing that everything's about to change. The media scrutiny, the intense public attention, I reassured myself that I would be there for him no matter what. I made myself a strong espresso and savored a quiet final moment, aware that it would be one of the last in what promised to be an exceptionally busy and incredibly exciting day. It was time to wake Barron. As I dressed him in his little blue suit, I went over the plan. She goes through the plan with him of, we're going to go here, then we're going to do this, then this is going to happen. And I just think she's such a faithful mom. She is managing expectations. She knows this is a big deal. And a 9-year-old boy would definitely need that. They can be fidgety. They can be distractible. They want to be active usually. And so for her to do this is very kind. I think it's very good of her to have coached him through the order of events and not just assumed we're going downstairs and we're going to do this and I'm going to need you to stand still. Instead, she carefully sets him up. Donald and I had discussed this next step at length and mapped out our plans, ensuring the timing was right for both of our careers and for our family. I was prepared for anything. But at the time, we were entering uncharted territory. In a few hours, the Trumps were getting into politics. And we will leave it there. We are partway through chapter 7 out of 18. So we're moving along at a pretty healthy clip. I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know what you enjoyed from today's episode. We had her business experiences, and we got to see her love for her mother, her deep affection for her mother. We got to see some of her approach of interacting with a blended family, and then the preparation for the moment which is going to change their lives when they enter the political world. So y'all tell me what you enjoyed. Come back in a few days for the next installment of Melania. Have a great day. Goodbye.